What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Mario coming to you with another video, here to give my reaction to the brand new episode of Moon Knight. Now, before we get into it, I know I didn't do last week's episode. I got caught up with real life stuff and I just didn't have a chance to do it. But I'll talk a little bit about that episode too. What stuck out to me in the last episode is that they gave more of a backstory for Layla, and they mentioned her dad. And when I first heard that, I was like, okay, I feel like they're gonna pay this off some way, somehow in the next coming episodes. Another thing that they bring up was Mark was after these guys trying to get answers from him, and then him and Steven are kind of struggling to kind of take control, but not that bad as in previous episodes. But he switches to Steven, and then when he switches back to Mark really fast, he notices that all the guys are dead. And so we kind of get our first tease at Jake Lockley, aka Moon Knight's third persona, because as Mark sees all those guys laying on the floor dead, he's like, Steven, what did you do? And then Steven just answers back saying, that wasn't me. So, can't wait. That's a big tease for what's to come. And in this episode, it was so damn interesting. It was so damn gripping. Like, I was just glued to the screen. I don't know the full lore and like the full extent of, all this Egyptian god stuff. But every time I watch it in movies and TVs, or even when I come across an article on social media, like, it's always so interesting, and I really invest my time in it. But now seeing it on the big screen in this way in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like, and how they do it, it's really intriguing. So episode 4 is titled The Tomb, and that's what we get. So we pick up where we left off. Steven and Layla, right after, Khonshu's disappearance, after he turned the stars back in time. And Layla escapes. And I can't like Layla even more because she's just a badass, She figures out a way to kill 2 guys in a truck. And yeah, like I said, she's just becoming more and more of a badass. You can relate to her. And more of her story is unraveling as the series goes on. They escape, and then they find Harrow's men. They're inside the pyramid already. And so Layla and Steven obviously go after them, or also enter the pyramid. But not before some things happen, and those things being that Layla and Steven are kind of falling for each other. There's actually a scene where Layla goes for a kiss, but then Steven later reveals that the reason why Mark is pushing her away is because Khonshu wants her to be his avatar. Right before they enter the pyramid, we get a shot of a blade on the floor of the sand. And I feel like there's some significance to it. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it really is. But the way the camera zoomed into the blade, I'm like, I feel like that's important. And we're going to come back to that in the coming episodes. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's just, it was very sus the way the camera moved and showed that blade on the floor. So Mark can tell that Steven is falling for Layla, and he's like, you better not make a move. And so once they're in the pyramid, Steven kind of reveals that he is liking her, and he actually kisses her. So, kind of weird because obviously they're the same person, but Steven and Layla just seem to click more, because like Layla mentions, Steven's all about honesty, and, opposites attract. So they're looking to see what's going on, what's Arthur looking for, and there's a bunch of dialogue of stuff that I do not understand, Egyptian stuff, but like I said, it's really gripping. I was highly invested. I just had a smile on my face. My jaw was to the floor. Like, I'm just glued. My eyes just glued to the TV. And they come across some creatures, which I think are either protectors of that pyramid they're in, and or like servants from Ammit. So that creature or creatures, I couldn't make if it was more than one, but that creature is killing off Harrow's men and like putting them on a table and like dissecting their body parts into little jars. And it's also gruesome, they show everything. There's definitely a horror element to it. And I praise Marvel for doing that. Layla and Steven are caught up by the creature, and they go their separate ways to try to, make the creature go after one of them, but it ends up going after Layla. And she is able to defeat this creature so beautifully. Like I mentioned, she's just becoming more and more of a badass. And so she defeats the creature, she outsmarts it, and then Arthur comes into the room where she's in, and he gives her some backstory. Since he knows all, he's like telling her, that your father was in this area and he was killed by a group of mercenaries. He never said that it was Mark, but he kind of worded it in a way where she put two and two together. Steven is in another room and he finds a tomb, and that tomb ends up being the tomb to Alexander the Great. And so he finds out that Alexander the Great is Amit's voice. And so Steven puts his hand down Alexander the Great's skeleton, dead body, and he looks inside for the Ushabti, and he's able to find it. He's all excited. As Layla walks in, she just has a dead, serious look in her eyes, like she's gonna kill him. And he notices that, and she asks, can Mark hear me, And so Steven ends up changing to Mark, and she's asking him what happened to my dad. And Mark ends up telling her that he actually was there in the location where her dad was killed, but it wasn't him. It happened to be one of her partners. I still personally feel like there's something more to it, but that's pretty interesting. And that's how they met. Layla says that it's basically because of guilt is how they met. Arthur catches up to them, and there's some dialogue trying to get inside their heads. Layla is able to somewhat escape, but not before Arthur shoots Mark in the chest twice. And there is just a beautiful slow motion shot of him falling back into the water. And my heart just drops. I'm kind of getting chills about it right now because that moment was so breathtaking. It was amazing how it all played out. Mark wakes up and he's barely trying to regather himself. He's super out of it, and he's in a mental institution. He's looking around the building, and everything that's in it, patients, staff members, writing on the walls, paintings, statues, everything there is people and stuff that he's come across up to this point in the series. He's out of it. He's confused AF, and so am I. I had a feeling that this mental institution part would be in this episode because of episode 3, after he gets out of it because he helped Khonshu put the stars back in order, or in that time period that they were looking for. And they had a promo. Marvel Studios released a promo for the upcoming rest of the episodes, and there's one where he's in a mental institution. So I thought it would be perfect because he's out of it in the last episode, episode 3. And I was told this theory that everything is just in his head. And so I thought, that makes sense, but I'm pretty sure Marvel wants to direct us that way, where we think it's all in his head. So I believe that everything was in his head, but he had to regather himself and come back out of it. And so after he gets shot and ends up here in this mental institution, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, it made it very clear to me that this is taking place, in his mind. And so he has to regather himself and snap out of it and come back basically, to Earth. And that's how he'll escape and come back alive from being shot in the real life. We meet Arthur as his main primary doctor, and he's just telling Mark, that this is all in your head, that you're saying a lot of things. You told me a lot of stories, that aren't true, that he also suffers from mental illness and he's just trying to help him. But Mark is trying, he's snapping out of it, slowly snapping out of it. There's also a scene too, right before he's moved to Arthur. He looks himself in the reflection of the mirror, and he's like, Steven, Steven, Steven. But Steve is not answering. It's just his reflection. And so Mark is able to, get up and regain his strength back. And he fights off two the bodyguards that were actually the ones who took him in episode 2, the female and the male. And he runs off. He's able to hide from them in a room, and he's looking around and he finds a tomb, and that tomb is shaking, and all you hear is, Mark, Mark, or help me. And he opens it, and it's Steven, but now they're both in their own individual physical bodies. And it was just cool how it happened. They hug each other, and then they let go of each other, and then they're just side to side of one another. And just how the camera work is, it's so beautifully done. So they hug each other, and it just pans in, and then when they separate, it pans out, and you just see two Oscar Isaacs. So right now they're separated, and they're talking like, what is the last thing you remember? And Steven was like, last thing I remember is we got shot by Arthur. And Mark's like, yes, So they got to figure out, they know something's up. They got to figure out what's going on and how to get out of this. And so they walk out of that room. They go back into the hallway, and they come across another room with another tomb. And so I believe, I'm 99% sure that tomb belongs to Jake Lockley, his third persona. We got a tease of him in episode 3, and I kind of thought we would have got something more for him in this episode, but what we got it's still perfect. Hopefully for sure the next episode 5, because we only have 2 more episodes left, hopefully he actually appears. Jake and Steven, sorry, not Jake, Mark and Steven, they just walk past it. And so, they're still talking, trying to figure out what's going on, what they're going to do, trying to think of some type of plan. And the doors open up, and out appears a hippo. And then one of the funniest moments in the episode was both of them. Oscar Isaac, man, deserves an Emmy for this. But they both freak out, and you just see them like, ah, like just screaming their asses off, and it ends. The hippo does say one thing, and the one thing she says is hi, and then that's what triggers both of them to scream their asses off. It was just so good. This whole episode was honestly amazing. I can say so far that I've enjoyed this one the most, and it's just perfect to what's to come. The hippo name is Taweret, and she's a god of childbirth and fertility. So I feel that she must be an alliance of Khonshu. If not, then, she's still here and is meant for good. And I feel like she will somehow, rebirth Mark and Steven, and she will help them come back to the real life, come back to the moment where he got shot, and rise up from the water as a god. Okay, not from a god, but she'll help them rise up again. And yeah, my overall thoughts on this episode was amazing. Like I said, I literally could not keep my eyes off of it. It felt like everything around me stood still. I was just focused, eyes locked in to the TV. It was just amazing. Like I said, it's my favorite episode thus far. And if you haven't been invested thus far in Moon Knight, then I hope this episode turns you over, because it's bonkers. But the question is, what are your guys' thoughts on it? Are you guys loving this series? How did you guys feel about this episode and where we left off? What are your guys' predictions for the last 2 episodes? Because it's approaching the series finale. I mean, it sucks that there's only 2 more left because I wish we can get at least like 4 more, because all this, everything, the characters, the story, the plot, the storytelling, it's so compelling, it's so juicy. Like, I just need more of this. But yes, what are your guys' thoughts on this episode? And whatever your thought, comment below, let me know. And please, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so. That would mean an awful lot to me. And thank you all for tuning in. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.